All right, guys. Hey, thanks for joining me today. So, yeah, I had a little breakdown yesterday with the combine. And with all the luck, this has not been a very fun harvest for soybeans this year. And with all the luck to just pile, I got in a car accident this morning. And, you're in the city and you think they're going to go for the yellow light. And at the last second, they hit the brakes, but you're already thinking you're going and a little bump, you pile on the brakes and a little bump. And, all right, crap. And so, I'm like, God, all I wanted was just to get my parts and get home. And now I got to deal with this crap. And so I'm looking for my insurance card. I'm calling the cops and, to get a police out there so we can just get on our way. And the car in front, you're like, oh, geez, I hope they're a decent person. It's a minor ding. Like in real, 30 years ago, this would have been a 5-minute deal. Like, hey, bud, sorry. Yeah, me too, blah, blah, blah. Exchange cars being here. But nowadays, everything has to be a big deal. So I'm looking at that stuff, and all of a sudden he gets out of his car, and it's a little person, a midget. And I'm like, oh, no. Oh, my God. Don't laugh, Okay. But it's so funny because he's over there throwing a fit, and how their limbs move is just funny. How they kick with their feet and have no bend in their knee. And he's just throwing a fit out there and kicking the car. And I'm like, oh, crap. Now I got to deal with this guy. And I get out and I'm like, hey, sorry. I thought you were going to, but you kind of smashed your brakes. And he's screaming at me. And finally he's like, I'm not happy. And the only thing I could respond with was, yeah, I figured you were grumpy. I'm sorry. That isn't very nice of me. But that's a good joke. Feel free to use that one whenever. And so I'll spin the camera around and show you this catastrophic meltdown of a combine. So, boy, it's been just a heck of a week. I ended up getting new tires on the back of the combine, or new to me. They're used takeoffs from a case. So I got the sporty silver back there for the performance package. My other tire, I was turning around on the headland, and you're like, gosh, something feels weird. Every time I'd turn, you're like, something feels weird, but I checked the tire, checked air pressure, everything looked normal. And then also one time you're turning around and boom, you heard a boom, and then the combine kind of rode funny, and you look in the mirror, and the tire blew the outer bead right off the rim, and the tire's flopping on the rim, almost ready to fall off. So there was that money. And then I was having troubles with the cutter bar. Gosh, I was just breaking guards and sections, and I wasn't going very far. So I ordered up an SCH cutter bar kit, the complete conversion. So new sickle bars, guards, all that stuff. Klaus, the Lexion heads already had that SCH kind of drive, that German drive where it's not a wobble box. It's a different box. And then I put a bunch of panels underneath the head to rebuild the head, and then went through and adjusted all these bolts to change that guard angle, and so that worked good. So then I did several hundred acres of beans, and I literally just went through a couple guards in one knife section. So I'm like, well, awesome. And we get to this field, and I'm going around, and all of a sudden, all within a matter of a moment, it said fan stopped. Your cleaning fan, no RPM, or cleaning fan stalled. So you spin the dial over to cleaning fan, and it showed RPM. And you're like, what the crap? About the time you're sitting there thinking, like, I wonder what's going on. And you speed it up and down, and it worked. So you put the trigger back to normal operating screen, and while you're in your head, like, I wonder what's going on. Maybe I should get out and look. And about the time the thought of I should get out and look crosses your head, then pretty soon, bang, 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 clunk, 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 and vibrate. And you're like, oh my gosh. And so it blew that sucker apart. What had happened is the bearing went out on the end. And then as the fan, with the bearing out, then the fan got moving around, and it broke this bracket and destroyed destroyed the fan. You're like, oh crap, and doggone it anyhow. But so we pulled it up, and it sucks, you know, because we hate breakdowns, but their combines, like we were, you know, chatting with grumpy farmers, it doesn't matter what combine it is. They're almost like an old vintage snowmobile or bike for you Southerners that you fix for a day to ride for a day kind of deal. But it's really not that bad on these Lexions. All you do is you can see the pan down there, and that's the pan for underneath the fan. And so then the shaft, you just put a cold chisel in that block, and that stretches the block so it slides on the shaft. And then you literally just pull the shaft out the other side, and then this fan fell down, and then put the new fan in and pull the shaft back through. So in a couple hours, you got the fan's blades replaced, and I'll just put that the bearing hangs here, and the bearings are kind of slick because they're on this tapered hub, and so you don't have to slide a bearing all the way off the shaft, you know. You just put the taper on and slide the bearing over it, and then the nut just locks on. Which out here, that don't seem like that big of a deal, but when you have a bearing in the middle and you got to slide that bearing, you know, 4 feet of shaft, that is an ingenious idea. And the bearings, so these are the first time I've seen bearings like this. Kloss is very good for using open face bearings that actually will take grease, and they're the first bearings I've greased with flanges that the grease actually comes out of the bearing and not just squirts out between the flanges. But then it's also a double roller ball bearing, and so you can see the two rows in there. So it's a very heavy duty bearing, and it's also made in Germany. That's what I love. The bearings don't cost a whole lot different than the other companies, but it's either made in Germany or made in Japan. I have not yet received a made in China part, and that alone means a lot to me. And so I'm gonna finish this project here. All I got to do is put this bearing on and the hanger assembly on, and then bolt up the other bearing, and then center the fan, spin it by hand, and you know, make sure that it's centered in that housing and nothing's rubbing, and then put my little half shell back on and the skid plate back on, and away we go. And so figure another half hour or whatever, and we're good to go. But yeah, beans are still tough, believe it or not. It's kind of hazy. I don't know if you can see it on camera. It's kind of hazy, kind of muggy. The beans are still, you know, 15%, and they're just growly through the combine. They're very tough to cut. It's just this soybean harvest this year is just whooping my butt. And yeah, righty. But anyhow, I'm gonna put this together. We'll catch you in a little bit.